These three devices represent Samsung's latest and greatest entries into the smartphone marketplace. This is the Galaxy S23 Lineup, the baseline, the Plus, and the Ultra. If you're in need of a phone upgrade, these are the fanciest Androids around. All sport a custom-designed mobile processor, better AI over their predecessors for enhanced low-light selfies, and faster, more efficient performance for improved battery life. Let's dive into the details and see if any part of this trio is the right phone for you. I'm Andrew from Apt, and in front of me are the Samsung Galaxy S23, the S23 Plus, and the S23 Ultra. And yes, to answer your most pressing question, if you get this model, you can call yourself Ultraman or Ultrawoman and fashion yourself after the obscure 1960s Japanese superhero. To answer your next questions, what's the difference between these three phones, and are any worth the upgrade from my current phone? Well, I actually made a whole video on that topic. It's this one. Let's dive in. Generally speaking, if you have last year's Samsung phones, anything from the S22 lineup, what you can expect across the board here in terms of improvement are a few things. Larger batteries, a slightly updated design, better selfie cams in particular, and a performance upgrade thanks to a new processor. For the most part, this was a year of fine-tuning for Samsung. The S23 lineup features smaller, practical changes instead of sweeping design changes. These aren't folding phones. With that in mind, these are still, without a doubt, the best phones Samsung has to offer, and in some ways, the best Android phones on the market. And you'll really feel that power upgrade if you're improving from a device older than the S22. But enough generalities, let's dive into specifics. All three phones come in black, cream, green, and lavender. All have a great commitment to future upgrades. They ship with Android 13 with Samsung's One UI 5.1 overlaid on top, and Samsung has promised 4 years of Android updates and 5 years of security updates. That's awesome. Google makes Android, and that 4-year commitment is more than Google is currently promising on their own flagship, the Pixel 7. The biggest aesthetic changes came to the non-Ultra models. Samsung got rid of the camera bump and went for a more streamlined look. The camera bump got bumped, you could say, if you really wanted to. The Ultra already had a similar lens look last year, and it keeps it this time, but the screen has a little more flat surface area with the Ultra this year, which is helpful because the Ultra comes with this little hidden S Pen guy. But I'll talk about that and more of the differences between the models in a second. All have facial recognition and a fingerprint sensor built into the display, so you can unlock it how you want. And on the inside, all have a new, customized Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 chip. It's actually called the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy chip to denote that 1, Samsung likes to put its brand on stuff, and 2, Samsung did work directly with Qualcomm for some personalized tweaks and optimizations here. So the phone's meant to be able to move fast and efficiently, and the screen can keep up with an adaptive refresh rate that can scale down for better efficiency on less demanding tasks, and then ramp all the way up to a 120 Hertz refresh rate for gaming or watching videos or when you really need that screen to move. All told, all of the S23s are highly capable models. None have a micro SD slot or offer satellite messaging, but you have different options for storage specs in each model, and for connectivity, the phones have a Qualcomm Snapdragon X70 modem to connect to Wi-Fi and lots of 5G bands. They even support the latest and greatest Wi-Fi called Wi-Fi 6E. All are IP68 weather resistant, so that's completely resistant to dust and water resistant at a depth of 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. I held up 4 fingers for whatever reason. Though Samsung notes that's fresh water, so don't drop this in the ocean. But you should be good if you accidentally drop it in the dishwasher or, woe of woes, the toilet. In that case, again, the phone will be fine and functional if in need of a good cleansing and sanitizing and, I don't know, ritual incinerating. In terms of CPU and GPU, they are powerhouses. They can play games, swap through apps, watch videos, and more with blazing speed. The S23 is a step up from the base Pixel 7 in terms of power, and the S23 Plus beats the 7 Pro. And then there's the Ultra, which is just a tier above. The Pixel has Android without Samsung bloat overlaid for a cleaner Android experience, but Samsung's One UI has some cool tricks with streamlining setup and integrating camera apps into the actual camera launcher. But while these S23s are all part of the same lineup, they are not in fact the same phone, which may come as some relief. You are not actually seeing triple. Actually, I can't say that for sure. How many of me are you seeing? This is not relevant. What is relevant, let's talk differences. The S23 starts at $800, $1,000 for the Plus, $1,200 for the Ultra. 6.1 inch screen, 6.6, 6.8. This one starts at 128 gigs of storage and goes up from there. These two both start at 256, 8 gigs of RAM, 8 gigs of RAM, 12 gigs of RAM. Otherwise, the S23 Plus and the Ultra have ultra wideband support for uber precise location tracking. The ordinary S23 also has a slightly older version of storage on just the 128 gig model. You get the faster version when you go up from there. The S23 and the S23 Plus are pretty much the same, save for those few specs. Go with this one if you want a smaller phone for smaller pockets or smaller hands. Go here for a bigger screen, more storage, more battery life. These two even have the same camera specs. On the back is a 50 megapixel main cam, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10 megapixel telephoto lens. The cams are capable of a 3x optical zoom and a 30x digital zoom. Plus, thanks to that spiffy new processor, Samsung says they're capable of increased dynamic range and glare reduction versus their respective S22 predecessors, even though the stats look the same. The selfie cam on the front did get an actual stat upgrade from 10 megapixels to 12 on both phones, and again, that processor should help optimize the image and ID objects in frame to make them pop more. When taking video, the cams have a bigger correction angle for optical image stabilization, and they support 30 frames per second at 8K and 1080p at 120 frames per second if you want to do some cool slow motion shots like this one. As for the Ultra, the video specs are the same, but otherwise you get a bump in pic specs, to say the least. The Ultra is kind of a different beast entirely. It has this S Pen right here, which cleverly clicks into the phone when you don't need it, while keeping it handy when you do. It's kind of a spiritual successor of the old Galaxy Note series, but in addition to having a bit of a different shape and screen and specs and such, it also has a ton of specs specifically to please your inner aspiring photographer. Specifically, the main cam is 200 200 megapixels instead of 50 on the others. Because of this, you can do an optical zoom at 3x or 10x magnification, and you have up to a 100 times digital zoom, because this guy has not one, but two 10 megapixel telephoto lenses. Like I've always said, double the telephoto, double the fun. Thankfully, you also don't need to take all of your ordinary pics at 200 megapixels and eat up all of your storage at once. You can choose whether your pics are captured at 12, 50, or 200 megapixels, with 12 actually being the best for low light and using a cool process called pixel binning, which kind of creates little 4x4 pixel squares within the bigger picture, and it turns those pixel squares into one bigger pixel. It's neat. Nifty, you might say. It uses the power of that 200 megapixel cam in a smaller file while upping the detail. All told, these are nifty phones, full of nift they are, and they're the most powerful Androids out there, so they're definitely worth a look if you're in need of an upgrade, and you can come on down to Apt and check them out side by side with the current iPhones and the current crop of pixels from the Google Pixel, not the pixels from the pictures, you know what I'm saying. You can also call us or check out the phones online, maybe on your smartphone that you're looking to betray by replacing. If you're watching on YouTube, on the phone or computer or wherever, please like and subscribe if you would. Also, thank you for watching and happy smartphoning. Sorry, I feel like that outro was kind of phoned in. Happy Galaxy-ing? Nah, that was some Galaxy brain stuff right there. Happy S23-ing. Sure, that's catchy. Thanks again.